There's a little story that I enjoy. I've told this a number of times over the years. It's not a true story, as far as I know. But it's about a guy who never believed in God, and one day this guy is out hiking. He's hiking through some mountains, and he gets too close to the edge of a cliff, and the ground crumbles beneath his feet, and he begins to fall. And he falls, and he's falling, and he just desperately lashes out and manages to grab a hold of a branch that's hanging from the side of the cliff. Below him is a 200-foot drop. He is still 30 feet from the top. He's safe, but after a while, his arms begin to get tired. They get sore. And he knows that he can't hold on much longer. And at that point, this man, who's never believed in God up till this time, decides that the only way that he can be saved, the only way he can be helped, is by God. And he prays and he says, God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I always doubted you. I'm sorry I didn't believe that you were real. I know that that you are the only one that can help me. And as the story goes, God says, do you really believe that I'm God and that I'm here? And he says, I do, God. And you believe I can help you? And he says, yes, I do, God. And you believe that if I tell you to do something, that will be the thing that will help you? And he says, yes, I do, God. And God says, let go of the branch. I like that story. I like it. I've used it in different teachings. Let go and let God is a good one for it. But this evening, what we're going to be looking at is walking out on the promises of God's Word. In Proverbs chapter 3, and you can turn there. In Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. In that little story, that fella sure would have had to trust in the Lord with all of his heart. And lean not unto thine own understanding. And trusting God with all your heart requires that you don't lean to your own understanding. Because if you have to understand how God's going to do this, if you have to understand why God would tell you to do this in a situation, then you're not trusting God, you're trusting your own understanding. You're not trusting Him. You're trusting, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. But God's Word says, lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. We have to trust Him. Have you all seen that little exercise? Sometimes they'll do it at like team building. It's one of those team building exercises where you have one person and they close their eyes and they fold their arms and there's a person behind them. And the exercise is you have to just fall back. You have to just let your body fall back and see if you trust that person to catch you. Right? I saw one recently where the guy fell the wrong direction, and that was hilarious. We have to trust God. We have to trust Him. And a question that you need to ask yourself in life is, how much do I trust? How much do I trust God? Am I willing to walk out? Am I willing to allow Him to direct my paths? Because before He can do that, before He can direct our paths, we have to take the first step. We have to begin to walk. I can honestly say that I have approached my life in that manner. I can't say I've done it perfectly, but certainly that's been the approach I've taken to living, is to trust God to direct my paths. And there's so many times, so many situations where It was just walking out. It was moving to a city without having a job lined up, without having a house lined up, with any place to live, with a young family, and having not a tremendous amount of money saved up and trusting God that He would take care of us. And I've done that again and again and again. I did it before I got married. You know, I hit Connecticut with a friend. We had $10 in our pocket between us. That wouldn't go real far. But I had the opportunity to trust God, to learn that. I went through a leadership training program where we did things that were learning situations. And I won't get into all those at this time, but where I learned to do that, where I learned to trust God. Many of you in this room have also done that as well. Been through those same situations where you had to go out, get halfway across the country with $10 in your pocket and come back with the same $10 and believe God to take care of everything along the way. It was a great learning situation. Had I not done that and proved God in my life, I don't know if I would have trusted God in those other situations. But you can grow in your ability to trust God. As you begin to walk, as you begin to do that, as you begin to trust God in situations, it builds that confidence. In 2 Corinthians, you don't have to turn there, it's just so brief, it's kind of not worth the effort. In 5:7 it says, "For we walk by faith and not by sight." We walk by believing and not by sight. You can turn to Joshua chapter 1 because Joshua's where we're going to be spending most of our time this evening. In the book of Joshua, God's people, the nation of Israel, they had to learn to do this. They had to trust God. They had to learn to take that first step in a very literal way of walking by believing and not by sight. To build up to that, though, we'll begin in chapter 1, in verse 1, where it says, "Now after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, it came to pass that the Lord spake unto Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' minister, saying, Moses my servant is" what? Dead. "Now therefore arise, go over this Jordan, thou and all this people, unto the land which I do give to them, even to the children of Israel." It had to have been such a hard time for Joshua. He loved Moses. You know, everything else aside, Moses was the man that Joshua served as his servant and proved his faithfulness in that position. Joshua was this one who grew up under Moses, under his leadership. And this man who he loved, and this man who has led them out of Egypt, and everything that it took to get out of Egypt, all the plagues, all of that power of God that was manifested. And then, taking them out of Egypt, and as they're out, he parts the Red Sea. And they all go through on that dry land into the wilderness. And for this whole 40 years, it has been Moses that has led this people. Moses, who has time and again gone to God on their behalf. Moses, who has put up with this group of people that were no cakewalk. These were no easy people to lead. These were people that on more than one occasion were ready to stone Moses. How would you like to be the guy to take over that job? How would you like to be the one who's, okay, now Moses is dead. Now it's you that needs to take over. That's what God says to Joshua. He tells him Moses is dead, and now therefore arise and lead him into that promised land. Moses never got to see it. Moses led them for that 40 years in the wilderness, but he didn't take them into the promised land. What does Joshua know about that promised land? Well, he knows firsthand what that promised land's all about because he's one of the 12 that went there. He knows what a great land it is. How it is a land flowing with milk and honey. That it's a land that's got just beautiful houses waiting for them to move into, fields ready for them to pick, vineyards, you name it. It's all there, all just waiting for them to take. He also knows that 10 of the fellows that went with him said, yeah, it's a great land, but there's people there. Big people, really strong people, really tough people. And if we try to take that land, they're just going to wipe us out. But Joshua was not one of those men that looked at it that way. He trusted God. That's why he's the right man for the job, isn't he?
Yeah.
But there's still a job to be done. And there's still a stiff-necked people at times to lead here. Verse 3. Every place that the sole of your foot shall tread upon, that have I given unto you, as I said unto Moses. Every place your feet walk, it's yours. It's already yours. From the wilderness of this Lebanon, even unto the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and unto the great sea, toward the going down of the sun, shall be your coast. There shall not any man be able to stand before thee all the days of thy life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. I will not fail thee nor forsake thee. Boy, you want to talk about encouraging words. Your entire life, nobody's going to be able to beat you. Nobody will be able to stand against you. As I was with Moses, and he knew the way that God had been with Moses. He knew what God had done for Moses. And now God's saying, I'll be the same way for you. You don't have to worry. Verse 6. Be strong and of a good courage. For unto this people shalt thou divide for an inheritance the land which I swear unto their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. In case you didn't hear me the first time, I'll say it again. Just be strong and very courageous. That, the word that indicates a purpose. What he needs to be strong and courageous to do. And it's not so you can beat all these guys. Be strong and courageous that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is in the law, which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayest prosper whithersoever thou goest. The only thing that Joshua has to think about is being faithful to the word. He needs to be strong and courageous to do the word. If he does that, God will do the rest. That's always the case. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. We don't have to figure out how to get the job or take care of that situation or survive this or that or whatever the case might be. We just have to be strong to be faithful to God's word, to not get distracted from that, to not get pulled off of that, to not lose sight of that, to be faithful to do the word, and then, just like Joshua and the children of Israel, we will prosper wherever we go. Keep reading. Verse 8, the book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night. It won't depart out of your mouth. Let it always be what you speak, and meditate therein day and night. He didn't have to sit down day and night and think about, okay, what's our battle plan here against the people in Jericho? How are we going to take care of those big walls? How are we going to do this? He just meditated in the word day and night. That thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein, for then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good, what? Success. Then you'll be prosperous. Then you'll have success in whatever you do. Have not I commanded thee, verse 3, be strong and of a good courage? Yeah, 3 times now. 3 times now he says that same thing. 3 is complete. Be not afraid, neither be dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. there he has the confidence. There he has the promise that God is going to be with him. Look at chapter 3. Well, he gets everybody ready to get moving. In front of them is the Jordan River. To get into the promised land, they have to cross over that Jordan River. To get out of Egypt, they had to cross the Red Sea. And God took care of that for them. Moses just was told to lift up his rod and the waters divided. God's going to do kind of the same thing, but he's going to do it a little bit differently. If you've ever seen the Jordan River, I looked it up once, had a picture of it. If I had thought of it, I would show it to you. I kind of picture the Jordan River as just like, Owasco River. Owasco River, we go down Owasco River all the time. It's just this little kind of like, we call it the lazy river. It's just this nice, you could drift down that on a homemade raft and you'd be fine. Take an inner tube, you're okay. And, it's just this, not too wide, not very exciting, peaceful. Jordan River, especially at the time that it overflows its banks, which it talks about here, it's a raging river. This is a big, raging river. This is what they're about to cross over. Chapter 3, verse 1. And Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim, and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over, still on this side of the river. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God. The ark of the covenant was what represented the presence of God. Okay? There are a couple different things in there. I won't get into that detail. But the ark of the covenant was what represented the presence of God. And they carried it, these poles and so forth. And when you see that ark of the covenant, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it. When you see it, follow. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Cubit is the distance from your elbow to your wrist, varied. For our purposes, we'll just say about 14, 16 inches. Okay? So somebody can do that math. But if it's 2,000, 2,000 cubits by measure? So we're talking over 2,000 feet, less than 3,000 feet, somewhere in there. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way which ye must go, for ye have not passed this way before. So stay far enough back that everybody can see. That's what he's telling them. Don't get too close, or the guys behind you won't know which way they're supposed to go. You haven't been here before. And Joshua spake unto the priests, verse 6, saying, take up the ark of the covenant, and pass before the people. And they took up the ark of the covenant, and went before the people. And the Lord said unto Joshua, this day will I begin to magnify thee in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with thee. Isn't God good? Yes. He does this. And just like Moses started off that journey parting the Red Sea, now Joshua's going to do something very similar that's going to show the people that he's also walking with God with great power. Verse 8, and thou shalt command the priests that bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when ye are come to the brink of the water of Jordan, ye shall stand still in Jordan. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, come hither, and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, hereby ye shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Hivites, and the Perizzites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Jebusites. This will give you proof. Whenever you're a little scared, whenever you're a little nervous, when these guys look kind of big to you, remember this day and what God's done for you this day. Behold, verse 11, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passeth over before you into Jordan. Now therefore Take you 12 men out of the tribes of Israel, out of every tribe a man, one guy out of every tribe. And it shall come to pass, as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall stand upon a heap. So this is what they're told to do. Take a step. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of that bank with this rushing river, and you're told, walk out on it. Take a step. As soon as you do, it'll be okay. As soon as you take that step, it'll be okay. But you got to take that first step. You've got to take the first step. Boy, when it comes to the things of God, when it comes to the power of God, if we're going to manifest it, we've got to take that first step. When it comes to the manifestations, we have to move. We move, and as we move, that Spirit of God is energized within us. We have to take that first step. We have to say that first word. We have to reach up to Daddy's cookie jar. We have to take the first step because God will not overstep man's free will. We take the step, and when we do, God goes to work. Verse 14. And it came to pass, when the people removed from their tents to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as they that bear the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for Jordan overfloweth all his banks all the time of harvest. That means it is at full flow. It is at full rush. That the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon a heap very far from the city of Adam, that is beside Zaratan, and those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people passed over right against Jericho. And the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on mushy, soggy ground.
No.
On what?
Dry.
On dry ground, in the midst, right there in the middle of Jordan. And all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over Jordan. Did God take care of them?
Yes.
Did he do what he said?
Yes.
Yeah. But they had to take that step, right?
Yes.
But when they did, when they trusted God, when they took that step, then God did this incredible miracle. Very much like what their fathers had seen as they came out of Egypt. And God showed them that day that he would take care of them all the days of their life. Turn to Matthew chapter 14. They took that step. They took that step of believing. And God, he did not fail them. There's another fellow that takes a step out into some water. In Matthew chapter 14. In verse 22, to set it up, and straightway Jesus, after these men teaching all the multitude, constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him onto the other side while he sent the multitudes away. Skip to verse 24. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And this isn't just a little, rocking the boat and you're feeling a little seasick kind of thing. This is big waves crashing over it. Verse 25. And in the fourth watch of the night, fourth watch of the night was divided into 4 different watches. Okay, so maybe 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning, something like that, when you're really tired. Okay, you've been up all night, can't sleep because you've been in the ship that's been thrown around and waves are crashing over you, and now you're really, really tired. At this time, in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. Well, Jesus Christ obviously was willing to take that first step because God had to tell him, start walking. The boat's out there. There's not another boat. These guys are freaking out. They need you. Just walk out to them. And he trusts God and he takes that step. Verse 26. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, "It is a spirit." And they cried out for fear. They're freaked out. And I'm hard-pressed to blame them, to be honest. If I was, especially about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and saw that, I think I might be a little troubled. But straightway, verse 27, Jesus spake unto them, saying, "Be of good cheer. It is I. Be not afraid." Hey, it's okay. Relax. Be happy. It's okay. It's me. It's me. I have to do that with my little dog all the time. And verse 28, and Peter answered and said, "Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. If it's really you, then let me get out of the boat and walk to you. Let me come to you." It's kind of bold of Peter to ask, isn't it? Yeah. Verse 29, and he said, "Come." Okay, you want to do it, Peter? You can do it. Come on, you can do this. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he did what? Walked on water. Some people say, well, Jesus Christ is the only one that walked on water. Well, they haven't read the record. Peter walked on water. He walked on water. He's doing it. He is doing it. He takes that step, and he's doing it. He's walking on the water. To go to Jesus, verse 30. But, when he saw the wind boisterous, when he looks around, when he takes his eyes off of the Master, when he takes his eyes off of Jesus and instead looks at the situation, he was afraid. He was afraid. When you take your eyes off the Master and look at the situation, when you stop and think, well, this is just crazy for me to try doing this, well, then you're going to sink, just like Peter. And beginning to sink, he cried, saying, "Lord, save me." And Jesus said, "No, if you can't believe." And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, "O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" You of little believing. You got some. You got some. You started off okay, but you ran out pretty quick here. Why did you doubt? Why did you doubt? We have to trust God. We have to walk out and not doubt. And some people are afraid to ever take that first step. And some, they take that step and they're walking and they're doing good. But then they look at life and they look at the situations and they begin to doubt. And then they begin to sink. But so long as we trust God, so long as we lean not unto our own understanding, no matter how crazy it looks, walk on water? No matter how crazy it looks, if we trust God, he will always be faithful and we will always have good success. He will make our way prosperous. God bless.